So hello everybody who is joining today for the EFT tapping adult workshop for the introduction to EFT. This is meant as a resource for self-help. This is the palliative version level of EFT tapping, emotional freedom techniques. The other level of tapping is something that you'd use in a therapeutic setting, which is something I also do. So I am a licensed mental health counselor based out of Newburyport, Massachusetts in the United States. And I work with individuals, adults, children, families, couples to help them with many of their challenges. I am also a community educator, and I am additionally a holistic coach. So I have a wealth of resources, and this is one of my favorite tools to help people in down regulating their stress level. That's a very easy to use self-help tool you can have at home. And if you reach a point in which you feel like you need additional support, that is when I would recommend reaching out to somebody who's trained in trauma-informed care, like myself or another practitioner that can help you work on deeper issues that's at the root of what may be causing continual distress for you. So I'm just curious out there because I had a couple of other workshops this past week that I had people joining from all over. So if you people out there don't mind sharing where you're logging in from, that'd be really cool for me to know, because I know I've had some people logging in from out of the country, logging in from the West Coast, and I'm just really curious to see where everybody's coming from that is getting this information. So if you are happy to share, please add it to the group chat. Concord, New Hampshire, awesome, welcome. I'm an original New Hampshireite, so I love New Hampshire. I grew up in Amherst, New Hampshire, so I'm very familiar. And anybody else out there who would like to share where they're from, I think it's just kind of cool to see who else is kind of connecting on a similar idea. Newburyport, awesome. Anybody else want to share where they're from? I am in Newburyport. Rockport, awesome, welcome. Rockport, Massachusetts. I know this information apparently is all over Eventbrite. So I had somebody logging in from Washington State on my other call, and a couple of kids from Toronto, Canada at the kids one last week. And if anybody out there is interested in getting access to those recordings for children, I did a youth EFT tapping workshop last week on that. And I also did a young adults version, which was ages 18 to 35. I did on Tuesday. So both of those recordings, as well as this one, will be put up on my YouTube channel for people who would like to access this information or share it with others after the fact, and just spread the awareness and hopefully spread the healing for many people out there. So what brings us here today? I decided I wanted to do this free workshop for people because there's a lot of people who are stressed right now with our current situation in our world, and may not have as many accessible, healthy coping tools available to them. So this is one of my favorites because it's so easy to learn and it's so easy to access repeatedly, especially if you get into the habit of using it. So without further ado, I'm going to start my teaching on exactly what we're here to learn about today. So emotional freedom techniques, as I will follow along in my packet and show on the screen in case you do not have the packet in front of you, is actually a kind of energy psychology tool. So energy psychology is a mind-body approach to understanding and improving human functioning. EP focuses on the relationship between bioenergy systems, neuro and electrophysiological processes, and mental functions involving thoughts, emotions, sensations, and behavior. These symptoms and processes exist and interact within the individual and between people. And I'll get more into that in a second. They are also influenced by cultural and environmental factors. So what they mean by influenced within the individual and between people is actually based on our biological energy field that we have around our body, also termed biofield. So we actually have this energy field that radiates from our body that is part of this whole system of how we interpret things in our world and how we take in information and then put it back out into the world as well. So on this packet, I'm going to skip down a little bit There's lots of different applications of EP out there. EFT is one of the most studied research methods in energy psychology. And I got this information for people who are curious out there from an organization called ACEP, and this is their logo in the packet. ACEP stands for the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. So through my work, I am actually the Massachusetts State Representative for ACEP, and so I have a direct line to all the scientists and the researchers that are doing this work out in the field, which is really cool because I get to meet a bunch of them, and I continue to meet more of them. But it allows me to obtain this information as actual scientific data with it and share it with the public, because I think that's a really important thing for our world to know about. So I don't know if you are from the local area, but you may have recalled that I had a few years back invited a woman named Peta Stapleton from Australia to come and speak to our community for free on her actual scientific study that she created and is detailed in her book, The Science Behind Tapping by Peta Stapleton. This study that she did was on the before and after effects of tapping on the brain with food cravings and addictions. And so she did, with the support of one of the largest institutes or schools in Australia, I think it was Bond University, sponsored the first ever fMRI study that shows the actual impact on the brain changes. And she does have the pictures in this book, though I cannot say that I know how to interpret them, and they are not in color, unfortunately. But she does explain all the research and what it says. And when she came to speak to us in Newburyport, she presented the results of that study, and the results were amazing. And they were very supportive of EFT being specifically helpful for food cravings and addiction. And that's just one of the things that EFT is helpful for. If you'd like to learn more about Peta Stapleton, you can search her on the internet. She does have a website. I believe she also has a special online program for people who are interested in doing a weight loss type of experience with EFT. She does have that on her own website. But to go on, I do have on this page just an example or information regarding the actual research that EFT and energy psychology goes through. So to date, as of June, July of last year, there have been over 200 studies, review articles, and meta-analyses that have been published in professional peer-reviewed journals on energy psychology and its effectiveness. So over 50 randomized controlled trials, over 50 pre and post outcome studies, and all but one of 100 plus of these studies documents energy psychology effectiveness. So 99% effective for all the things that it was tested for. And EFT, like I said, is the most researched energy psychology method since the early 2000s. So on to the next page. So what does energy psychology and EFT actually work with? So multiple research studies have found that energy psychology methods can effectively treat anxiety, depression, food cravings, pain, trauma, and PTSD. When it gets into the heavier things like trauma and PTSD, that is when you would want to seek a professional to help you with that experience, because you really do need the support of that person helping you in that process. For self-care and palliative version, which you'll learn today, it's very helpful in decreasing just overall stress, improving some depressed feelings. It might even help with some of your food cravings and also some pain relief. And if you have a specific desire to work on something like that today during our call before we get off the call, please let me know and we can try to tap through that while on the call today. I do at least ask, I think, for at least one volunteer before the end of the call. So if you have time to do more than one, that'd be awesome. So we're still trying to get EFT into mainstream medicine. It is hitting a little bit of a wall because it does help to heal certain things. But the details that I felt like were really important to put on here is that it is at least being now noticed by things like the National Institute of Health and Care Excellence in the UK as being worthy of further research. The U.S. Veterans Administration added EFT to the list 2 regarding it as generally safe therapy. The next process for getting that even further is to get it onto list 1, which is a list of approved treatments for people. So that's the big hurdle that they're still working on getting. In addition to that, I was actually shocked to learn this. There are over 400 identified forms of psychotherapy, many of which have little or no research to validate them, which I was shocked by, seeing as I'm in the field. And energy psychology is both evidence-based and in the top 10% in terms of published research for psychotherapy modalities. So all of this information came directly from ACEP's Science of Energy Quick Facts, which is available on their website. And if you're interested in looking more of that up in some of the research articles, I did provide the website name right on the page there. So next, we will get into what actually is EFT. So EFT is sometimes called acupressure for the emotions. EFT or tapping is highly focused energy, an energy psychology method that rapidly releases the emotional impact of stressful or traumatic life events from the body-mind system. As clients bring their attention to distressing memories and symptoms, practitioners walk them through a process of voicing specific statements while tapping on a series of acupuncture meridian points. This activation appears to reduce levels of stress while stimulating processing of previously stuck emotions and habit patterns. Like I said, to view actual research papers, you can go to ACEP's website. For specific to EFT research, there's been research done in over 10 countries by over 60 different researchers. And the reason that's important is that it shows that we're not just kind of saying, oh, this one person is doing all the research and they're finding it all effective. There's been a breadth of people who've tested it from all different backgrounds, and they're all finding the same information that it is effective. So that's really important to provide that validity. And there's over 20 different peer-reviewed journals that have demonstrated this and documented this information. And these are just a few of them listed on this image. So EFT, where did it come from? In the early 90s, a man named Kerri Craig was a Stanford graduate engineer who was in a completely different line of work, doing insurance sales and being successful in different things. And he started to do some early life research on self-improvement and professional development, and then turned towards activities solely directed on presenting seminars and offering personal performance coaching. He then went and trained with Dr. Roger Callahan in thought field therapy. And thought field therapy became part of the foundation of EFT. So Kerri Craig took the TFT, which is a set of algorithms of tapping on your body in certain formulas, and found that in his practice with other people, there was something a little bit missing, and he had more of a psychology direction. So he found that combining psychology with the TFT process helps to focus more on reducing the charge behind specific events and memories within an individual rather than just certain conditions in the body and so on. So that's kind of how EFT started. A lot happened kind of in the history of EFT. There was some spin-offs and change of boards and stuff like that. But eventually, Kerri Craig's organization went on to approach ACEP, the organization that I work with, to create the first accredited EFT training programs available to licensed professionals who want to use this method in clinical treatment. And these programs are now frequently approved for continuing ed on multiple boards of professional licensure. So that is how I got this information. I have taken 2 levels of EFT through ACEP, which is up to the trauma-informed level care for EFT. Any questions on any of this information so far before we get into how this all works? If you would like to put a question into the group chat, you're welcome to do that instead of speaking up as well. Anybody? Nope. Okay, I will go on then. So how does EFT work and what is it doing in our body? I personally think that this is a really important thing to cover because when I first came across EFT, and I was exposed to it a few times before I actually learned it. But the more recent time before I actually got trained, I watched the Tapping Solution DVD by Nick and Jessica Ortner. And at that time, I knew really nothing about it. And I went through the process and had an actual energetic cleanse in the process. And I wasn't prepared for that because nobody told me what would happen if I did some processing. And it scared the crap out of me. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to teach other people the basics of this and provide the awareness of what it looks like, that it's actually working, and also how it works in the body, so you understand why you're tapping on certain points, how to find the specific points, and then you can use them to your advantage rather than being scared of it and running away. So the basic premise, like I said, is off of the bioenergy field, the biological energy field. So this is kind of just a demonstration of it. It comes from our heart, it radiates from our heart and goes around our body. And it really kind of depends on your energy focus and also how much you're kind of expanded out on how far that biofield goes around your body. You can actually do things to kind of bring it in more too, so you don't overlap with other people. But it's always there. If you're living, you've got this biological energy field around you. I believe animals also have it. So if your heart stops, your energy field goes away as well. The next part of EFT is based on the body meridians. And this is more Eastern philosophy. This is a picture used for acupuncture, usually acupressure points. But all of the points that we tap on will hit every single one of our body meridians and clear out the energy and all of those energy channels that we have. The other part that I just added to my handout, which I found to be a really important missing piece, was the role of the vagus nerve. So if you're not familiar with the vagus nerve, which I wasn't too familiar until I really came across this information and realized I needed to add it, the vagus nerve is connected to the the top of our spinal cord, and it connects all the way down our body, all the way down our spine, and connects to all of our major organs. So in this picture, you'll see that the green represents the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is connected to our amygdala and our overall limbic system. And it is one of the cranial nerves. So this makes a lot of sense when, if it's connected to all the major organs, and it is the most important nerve in the body because it helps us to calm and relax, that if we're not in a healthy state, it triggers everything in our body. So to expand on that, the vagus nerve in a healthy activation state, you are allowed typically to access creativity, critical thinking, and more involved cognitive processes. So you can think clearly. You're not really triggered into anything. You're able to function normally. But if you are in a unhealthy activation state and you are triggered, you are likely stuck in fight or flight brain activation, which may cause you to be, let me flip this page, hypervigilant, overreact to situations. You might even be more argumentative with people. You might feel confused and lacking the ability to problem solve without feeling overwhelmed. And in that case, if you're in that unhealthy activation state, your body is likely interpreting that it's not feeling safe. And survival is your immediate focus. So until you get your body to calm down a little, it's really hard to think about anything else than just survival. And you're just reacting to whatever's going on. So prolonged unhealthy activation of the vagus nerve, this is really important, is suggested to increase inflammation in the body, decrease oxytocin, your happy chemicals, and contribute to declining immune health. And to get more information on that, I recommend watching the clip for Dasher Keltner that I put on there. And he goes into the more specifics about that on that video. So what actually does the vagus nerve connect to, and how is it controlling things? So I also have another little image right here. So these are all the things that are affected by the vagus nerve: breathing, speech, swallowing, heartbeat, blood pressure, your hearing, taste, circulation, digestion, gut health, bladder movement, orgasms, and fertility. So if you have an unhealthy vagus nerve activation, then you're likely going to be struggling in many of these things, or at least a couple of them. So what affects the vagus nerve stimulation? A lot of people are experiencing many of these things right now. Primary one, stress. And I pretty much know everybody's stressed right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if many people's vagus nerve is struggling a little bit more now than previously. So additionally, anxiety, smoking, alcohol, overworking, lack of exercise, improper nutrition, and lack of sleep. So if any of these are happening for you, your vagus nerve may need some support right now. Additionally, the vagus nerve is very much connected to the stomach. So this diagram just kind of explains the interrelationship of the vagus nerve and how it talks to the stomach and reacts to the stomach. And if you really think about, if this is all connected to the vagus nerve, whenever you have a fight or flight situation going on, you're gonna have a reaction in your stomach, you're gonna have a reaction possibly in your breathing, you're being able to speak clearly, you being able to have your heart beat at a normal rate. All these things are gonna be triggered. So, and this is an evolutionary thing that we've developed because of, needing to run away from the tiger. So it's not anything that is not natural. It's just when we've gotten into a pattern of being consistently triggered without relief, then it becomes we're always overly activated in our world, even if there's no immediate real trigger going on, real fear of danger, threat, whatever. So it becomes problematic for us. So in addition to that, so I added this little image here that talks about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and how that responds with all of the different nerves in the body. So you can look into that a little bit more for more details on what might cause certain things to activate or react. So before I get into the tapping part, I also wanted to just make note of a couple of things that are not EFT that you can also do to help regulate the vagus nerve. So other things that you can do is to wash your face or skin with cold water. Apparently that also helps to kind of activate the vagus nerve and stimulate that. What is the name of the author of this paper? I actually put together all of these pieces on this handout. I picked some of these pictures off the internet. I do add a lot of links for other people who've said certain things. And ASAP most likely has a lot of this information in their documented work as well. So if you're interested in the actual research papers, I recommend going to ASAP for the activation of these, or the information on these things. The vagus nerve, I kind of compiled stuff just for this today. But I encourage you to continue to seek more research out there if you're interested more in that. I did get that information off one of the videos that I watched on the vagus nerve on the internet. Laughter apparently also helps the vagus nerve to be activated. Singing and chanting vibrates the vagus nerve in the throat, which our vagus nerve goes to everything, so that's not surprising that that vibrates there. Deep breathing, yoga, and then there's more things out there. So those are just some of the ones I picked off of that video that I thought were pretty applicable to most people. So I also highly recommend that people watch this video on the polyvagal theory, because this explains a lot about the vagal nerve as well. And that is available on YouTube, and I provide the link in this handout. If you join the call a little bit late and you don't have this handout, I did put the link to the handout at the top of this group chat. If you cannot see it, please let me know, because I know somebody had a problem with that last time I was on a call, and I can retype it in if it's not up there for you. So if you do watch that video on the polyvagal theory, it will likely help you to understand why certain parts of your ideal functioning may not be accessible under prolonged exposure to stress. So for example, people who are in their homes and they'd like to maybe be a little bit more compassionate to people, or they'd like to maybe have more intimacy with their partners right now, but they're in that kind of triggered, overwhelmed state, it's going to be hard to access that ability to be in that energy if you're in that triggered state. So yes, I will put that link up again. I will copy that right now. So it's called the comprehensive, I made this handout, it's the comprehensive EFT tapping handout. No problem. Thank you for letting me know that you couldn't see it. So on to the next page. So this is another diagram I decided to put into this manual because I know there are some people out there who are a little bit more aware of like the energy perspectives of things, and I am somebody that works with energy. So this made sense to me, and I think it might make sense to a lot of other people out there. So this image that I provided on here came directly from a book that I actually have in my office called The Healer's Manual, A Beginner's Guide to Energy Healing for Yourself and Others by Ted Andrews. So this image validates the connection of our energy centers, chakras, to our physical organs, and thus our vagus nerve. So this is an image that talks about the spinal cord and all the different organs that it connects to. And then it also shows you which chakras are in line with all of those organs and which ones relate to which parts. The additional piece at the bottom of this page that I thought was interesting says that the spinal context of the chakras, vibrations can be absorbed or projected through the chakras. The vibration is transmitted into the vertebrae of the spine, then transferred along nerve pathways, vagus nerve, to the organs, tissues, etc., to which they are linked. And imbalances can thus be balanced by addressing that energy and the vibrations that are affecting the body. So I thought that was really cool. So how is prolonged exposure to stress affecting us right now? I think everybody's kind of going through a little bit of a different experience. I don't think that anybody's experience is invalid. I really don't, because everybody's got their own background of experiences. Everybody's got their own history of challenges, and everybody's situation is different. So I encourage you to have compassion for your neighbors, for other people on the internet right now. I've heard and seen a lot of people kind of discouraging others from sharing how they're feeling or minimizing what their stresses might be because it's not their stress and they don't see it the same way. And I think that's the last thing that we all need right now, is to kind of lack compassion for anybody's situation, because we don't know what people are going through in their own shoes, and they're not likely to share that publicly because it's not something they're probably proud of or feeling great about. So I think the general gist, though, is a lot of people are feeling experiences of grief and trauma. And this is not surprising because this is something that was unexpected that happened to us. It was widespread, it was unplanned, and many people instantly overnight had their entire lives changed. And it's been extremely traumatic for many people. I apologize if you can hear somebody revving their engine on their motorcycle outside. I can hear it through my headphones. So to move on from that, so based on personal history, subconscious programming patterns, and coping skills accessible, everybody's going to react differently to the situation that we're in right now. So how does a trauma response kind of get displayed? I put this image in here to give people some perspective on what might be happening if you are in a state of trauma. So there's many different reactions that can happen, a lot of different stress responses. You might be having nightmares, you might have depression, you might be having some dissociation at times, hopefully not too much of dissociation, because if you are, I would definitely recommend checking in with a provider that can assist you with that, because that's concerning if you're not able to kind of stay connected with your body. You might have some self-destructive behaviors going on, some eating issues, irritability, loss of interest, wanting to numb things, trouble sleeping. The list goes on with how you might be responding to this. And trauma and grief have very similar responses. So if you're feeling any of these, please know that you are not alone out there. There's a lot of other people who are feeling the very same way that you are. And hopefully this tool that we are talking about today can help you to mitigate some of those stresses a little bit easier on your own at home. So This hopefully can help you to navigate your unique situation a little bit better, improving your response to it. And before I even get into the tapping, I'd like to just note some other skills for improving your overall coping right now. So one of the things that Petta Stapleton described to us when she came to us in Newburyport was, there was a couple of things that were just really helpful for people, and everybody I've shared them with really appreciated them. So I'm going to share them with you too, because I think it's valid. So one of the first things that she said was, when we go into a fight or flight state in our body, what happens is all of the blood flow that's usually in the front of our brain that helps with decision making and so on leaves the front of our brain and goes right down into our chest and extremities to prepare for fight or flight. And so when that happens, you have no ability to think clearly. So in order to regain some of that ability and feel like you can do that a little easier, you're going to want to just put your hand on your forehead and just leave it there for like 1 to 2 minutes. And if you can just remember to do that, it will at least help you to regain some clear thinking. And the reason that works is, as I was saying earlier, we have this biological energy field around our body, which also comes off of our hand and our arms. And so the electromagnetic field from our hand, once put on our forehead, will draw the blood back up into the frontal lobe of our brain and allow us to regain our ability to think more clearly. So if that's the only thing you can think to do when you're feeling exasperated, we actually naturally do this, right? Feeling exasperated and you're like, oh, our intuition already knows like this will help you feel better. So just do this. And it does. People don't realize that our body has this natural knowing. And if you just kind of follow what your intuition tells you to do, you'll often get the answers that you need. So doing this helps. And then additionally, if you are wanting to do some calming of your body and you want to do it more discreetly, because EFT can sometimes be not very discreet and a lot of people can feel uncomfortable with tapping in front of others. So another tip she gave us was that originally, before they got into these scientific tapping points that I'm going to teach you, they used to use the sides of the fingernails to use for tapping. So there's actually pressure points on the sides of your nail bed. So what you're going to do is you're going to start at the top of your hand and you're just going to pinch the sides of your nails for a couple of seconds each and go down your fingers. And just breathe a little bit when you're doing that. You're going to go down each finger. And the other hand. And then you're going to take a cleansing breath at the end. Whenever you're pressing on your fingertips or you're tapping on points, you're going to want medium pressure. And you're not going to want to tap too hard. You're not going to press too hard because you don't want to give yourself bruises, but you also want to activate the point. So medium pressure is really good for doing stuff like that. So in addition to that, you want to do full belly breathing. So some people have heard about this, others may not know why. This is important. When we go into fight or flight in our body, we actually naturally start breathing in our chest. And the reason for that is, have you ever noticed when you're running, you can't breathe anywhere else besides in your chest because we have to have this shallow breathing. So if you're triggered consistently, your body's saying, oh no, I have to run or I have to fight. And so you're shallow breathing, but that does not help you to calm your body. It actually triggers your fight or flight even more by breathing shallowly. So what she encouraged us to do was to intentionally breathe into our belly, and I'll demonstrate how I recommend doing that for people. So you're going to take your hands and put them on your stomach, and when you breathe, you're going to pull the air all the way into your abdomen and intentionally push out your abdomen when you're inhaling and contract it when you're exhaling. So I'll demonstrate that. So you're going to inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. And when you do that with your hands on it, it reminds you to ensure that you're pushing your stomach out and expanding the air into your belly. Because some people, if they don't have their hands on there, they won't remember to actually bring it through to your stomach. And I have noticed too, for many women, especially for some women who are maybe in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and older, women's contracting their stomach was something that they were expected to do because that's more feminine, to contract. Don't let your stomach hang out. Make sure it's always sucked in. And that actually causes you to have shallow breathing and trigger your fight or flight response. So if you can allow your stomach to be more relaxed, it will help you to breathe more deeply and breathe so that your body feels more cleansed. When you breathe deep into your body, you're running all the breath through all of your energy centers and down the whole vagus nerve. So this is a really important part of the process, is to make sure you are deep breathing. And then just also notice if your body posture, when you're just hanging around in your house or whatever, whether or not it's collapsing inward or if it's expanded outward. So I have a feeling a lot of people out there are kind of like hunched in and they're, you know, kind of collapsed inward, and that's generally kind of a sign of not feeling very confident and not feeling very supported or being fearful. So if you know that your body is demonstrating that, in order to shift that energy a little bit also, just pay attention to sitting more straight, expanding your shoulders back, taking a deep breath and expanding your shoulders back so that your body can open up more, and then you will actually feel a little bit more supported by having a more open body posture. And then the last thing that I'd like to mention for improving your overall coping is making sure that you are getting outside and try to earth. So the earthing has been shown to also reduce inflammation in your body, reduce symptoms of depression. It has also been shown to speed up blood viscosity, reduce pain sensation. There's a lot of actual scientific evidence out there that proves this stuff too. You can look that up on the internet. If you go to my website, which I will type here, I have a page that is specific for COVID-19 holistic wellness tips as well. I won't put that part because I don't remember exactly how it's spelled for the COVID-19 page. But if you go to my website, which I just put into the group chat, www.awakenhcs.com, I have a COVID-19 page, and on that I have a whole list of holistic wellness tips. I have information, more information about earthing on there, and also the links to the full documentary and some research articles that are available through that as well. So the important thing about earthing, all you have to do, it's free, right? All you have to do is put a bare hand on a tree that's planted in the ground or a bare foot on the soil and just leave it there. You don't even have to walk around. All you have to do is sit with your feet on the ground and just allow the energy to decompress from your body. And it also, I've been told, helps people's feet to feel softer, reduces inflammation in their legs, just by sitting down with their feet on the ground for 15 minutes. So as soon as you connect to the earth, you'll likely feel something, but they said 15 minutes daily will help you to find a little bit more grounding and reduce some of those symptoms that I've discussed. So without further ado, any questions before I go on to the actual tapping process? Please let me know in the group chat if you have any questions, any of that. Not seeing anything coming through, so I will go through on the tapping process. So EFT tapping has this is the gold standard. Oh, please describe earthing technique again before I go on to that. So earthing, all you have to do is place your bare hand on a tree that's planted into the earth. It's important not to use potted plants because it's not directly connected to the earth. The earth has an energy field as well. And as humans, we became disconnected from the earth's energy back in the 60s when we developed rubber soles. So once we put rubber soles on their body, they actually started seeing a huge amount of increasing inflammation related illnesses out there. Yeah, List of helpful hints. Yes, I have a bullet list of helpful hints on my website, and this is in the earthing is in there. So hand on the tree, barefoot on the ground. If you want more of those specifics on exactly what that all does, I highly recommend going to my website because it explains it much more in detail. And you should find all of the answers to your questions on there. So the EFT tapping, this one that I'm going to be demonstrating for you is the gold standard for the scientific testing that they use. So if you've heard of the tapping solution that's out there, or the Yes Code, or other models that are out there, they are based on Gary Craig's original method from the courses that were created that I obtained this information from. These are the ones that are used for the scientific studies. The other ones have been modified for those specific practitioners. So it may be a different formula than what you're going to see today. This is the one that's used in the scientific research. Doesn't mean that the other one isn't helpful. It just means that it might be a little different. So looking at this page, you're going to see 8 points on here, and I'm going to show you exactly how to find them. So the first point is on the side of your hand, and you're going to go find your pinky bone and your wrist bone, and you are going to tap right in the middle, and you're going to use medium pressure, like I said. This is also a great moment for me to inform if you happen to be a energy sensitive person, or if you happen to have a history of any physical or sexual abuse that makes you sensitive to physical touch, this may be overstimulating for you. So if it is feeling overstimulating and overwhelming for you, then I recommend backing up away from the body and tapping on the energy field of your body to see if that feels more comfortable for you. I have worked with many energy sensitive people and have found that this seems to be less uncomfortable. And so if this is more comfortable, use that. You can also press and hold the points instead, or rub them in circles if that's more comfortable for you as well. The point is to activate the point. So just know what your level of sensitivity is and go with that. So I will be demonstrating for the most part on the physical tapping here, and you just modify as we go along when you're in your own home. So this is the side of the hand point. Generally 4 to 8 times tapping on each point is good enough. I will instruct a little longer just so people get used to the sensation. So the next point is on the top of the head, and you're going to find right in line with your ears, there's a ridge at the top of your head. So you're going to tap 2 to 4 fingers at the top of your head. And remember to breathe. And then the next point is right on the inside of your eyebrow. There's a little ridge on both sides. And you're going to tap with 1 to 2 fingers there. And remember to breathe. And then the next point is the side of the eye point. So you're going to find this little notch right in the corner of your eye socket. You're going to tap 1 to 2 fingers there. I had somebody ask a question, does the order matter because the tapping solution uses the top of the head last? And this is exactly the thing I expected because like I said, this is the gold standard. So this is the one that I was instructed on in my accredited classes. The tapping solution is a slightly different formula because they have copyrighted the way they do it. Gary Craig owns the copyright to the other formula, so they have to switch it up. But again, both work. If you already know the other order, you can still do it in that order, but I have to instruct it in this way as the gold standard. So here is, again, the side of the eye point. Make sure you breathe during that point as well. The next point is underneath the eye. So you're going to go 1/3 in from the eye. There's a little notch right here. So you're going to tap 1 to 2 fingers there. And breathe. And then the next point is underneath the nose. You're going to find that little ridge right there. You're going to tap there and breathe. And then the next point is underneath the mouth, right where that crevice is in your chin. You're going to tap 1 to 2 fingers there. And the next point is a little bit more challenging for people to find. So you're going to find the center of your neck, and right where the end of your bone is in your throat there, you're going to go 1 inch down and then 1 inch on both sides. Remember that distance, because the distance is important. So 1 inch down, 1 inch on both sides, and there's 2 little fleshy spots there. So you're going to press and hold, or you can tap there. If you want to use one hand, you can tap like that. This is my personal favorite spot for tapping because it's really easy to get to in a moment, especially like if you're driving and maybe you have panic attacks while you're driving, or your other hand is not, available. Maybe you have one of your hands injured, whatever. You can use one hand to tap on all of these processes actually. And remember to breathe there. And then the last point is underneath the armpit. It's the most awkward one. You're going to go about 1 hand's width down. And for many women who wear bras, it's right about where the bra strap hits. So you're going to tap there. You can also, if you prefer, tap like this. Or if you would like to, you can hug yourself and tap like that. And remember to breathe. And then at the end of your tapping sequence, just pay attention to how your body is feeling. Notice if there's any reduced tension in the body. Sometimes headaches start to go away, which you can also use this for headaches, by the way. If anybody would like to share any responses they felt in their body, that'd be really cool to hear. If anybody noticed a difference already just from doing one round without a focus, before I move on to the next thing. So as far as the tapping on which sides, so tapping on this is the awesome tingling. So for the setup statement hand, which is the side of the hand point, you're going to use your dominant hand. That's what they recommend. It's not necessary, but it's preferred. If you can use your dominant hand for the tapping on the non-dominant hand, because you will get the most consistent pressure. So as far as the rest of the points in the body, you can use both hands on all of your points. You can do this, you can do this, or you can use one hand for all of it. So as long as you hit the points, because we have the points on each side of the body, minus the ones that are in the nose and the mouth. These are the only 2 that don't have ones that are on both sides of the body. So you can do one side. You can do, it doesn't matter if you're like, oh, I'm on this side most of the body, and then I go to the other side under the arm on the other side. Doesn't matter. As long as you're hitting all of the points, then you're getting the full kind of flush through your whole system. If you happen to miss a point, you can go back and hit that point after. And if it's not in the right sequence, it doesn't matter. As long as you hit the point, even if you miss a point, it's not going to do a ton of damage to miss one, because you're getting most of the system anyway. So let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions on here. You use only one hand. What do you do with the points of the brows, side of the eyes, under the eyes? Yeah, so if you use only one hand, you want to just do one hand like that. Does that answer the question? And I'm glad people felt a little bit more relaxed after the first round. You can do one side at a time if you want to get both, but you don't have to do both sides. You can just do one. Okay, I think that answered all the questions. I'm glad that people started to feel a little bit of a shift. So some of the responses, and not everybody feels this way, but many people feel a response in any of the following ways, which is a sign of energetic release and is a positive response for this tapping process. So that could be a tingling in your body, in your hands, or in other parts of your body, flushing warmth feeling through your body can also be a response, yawning, additional deep breathing, laughing, crying, yes, crying. And if you start to cry, that's your body saying there's something that I need to let out. So that's why I encourage people, if you start to tear up, don't give up on the tapping. Continue to tap and breathe with wherever you are on a process, and just let that flow through until it calms itself down. Because if you stop that process, then you actually stop the reprogramming of whatever's going on in your body. So that's a really important thing, because EFT is an exposure therapy tool. In order to actually have the progress and the process really work, you need to be able to meet the emotion and allow the emotion to come through in order for you to reprogram it and you not have that feeling anymore. That's a really important facet of this tool. Any questions on any of that so far? No new questions yet? Okay, I did cover that part already. So the next part I'm going to cover is the setup statement and the subjective units of distress. So the SUDS level. When you're using this for your own self-help at home, the way that you can gauge whether or not it's working is by setting up a SUDS level, which stands for subjective units of distress. So your SUDS is on a scale of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. And when I say highest, I mean you're like on the floor, hyperventilating, collapsing, breathing, in complete distress, crying, whatever. That's your 10. So a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I'm a 10, but you're not actually emoting when you're saying you're a 10. You're probably not quite a 10. Your 10 is going to be, I am like completely inconsolable. So on a scale of 0 or 1 to 10, what your level of distress is should be gauged at the beginning of using the tool if you're wanting to really gauge your progress. For example, I went for a bike ride before I came in for this call today. So my level of distress and tension in my neck is probably, I'd say like a 6 or a 7 right now. So if I'm tapping on that, I'm going to say my level of distress is a 6 or a 7. So if you give a range, they recommend you use the higher number. So I'm going to say it's a 7 for my level of distress in my neck. Additionally, when you're giving the SUDS level, you're going to want to pick a theme, which this goes in line with the whole setup statement as well. So you're going to pick what your target issue is. You're going to give it a small theme name. So for me, mine's going to be the tension in my neck. And that's going to be my focus. For others, it might be being upset with my spouse, or feeling stressed about my job, or feeling stressed that I've been laid off, or, pick your theme that makes sense for you and make it a short and sweet title. And then you're going to put that into your setup statement. And then you're going to use that, the tapping levels of distress and the sensation that you get as part of the whole round. So when you're thinking about your theme, you're going to evaluate in your body, when you think about that issue, where is the sensation in your body? So you're going to find the sensation and you're going to give it a little bit of a descriptor. So for me, mine's in my neck, and I'm going to say a tightness. So my neck, my tightness, went for a bike ride. That's maybe my theme. Or maybe overexerted myself on a bike ride. I'm going to use on the side of the hand setup statement. Even though I feel like I overexerted myself on a bike ride today, I am choosing to deeply and completely accept myself anyway. And so that statement is a really important part of this process as well. When you're doing the setup statement with your issue, you're going to want to say what your target issue is, the small theme name, and then you're going to balance that out with a positive affirmation. And this is called an energetic reversal, psychoenergetic reversal. Here is my issue, and I'm going to accept myself anyway. And that is an important part of the shifting of the energy in this process. So if you don't really accept yourself, because many people have a challenge with feeling like they accept themselves for many things that are going on, then you can say, I'm choosing to accept myself. I'm working on accepting myself. You just want to make sure that it feels authentic for you, because it's not going to land the same way in your process if it doesn't feel authentic. So you pick where you're at with that. So I'm going to just demonstrate, even though I feel like I overexerted myself on my bike ride today, I'm choosing to love and accept myself anyway. Even though I feel like I overexerted myself on my bike ride today, I am going to love and accept myself anyway. And then I'm going to go to the top of my head, and I'm going to start tapping in the points. And I'm going to say, this level 7, this tension in my neck related to my bike ride. This level 7, tension in my neck related to my bike ride. So you pick your theme and you go follow along with me and say whatever makes sense for you along the way. So I'm going to say this level 7, this tension in my neck related to my bike ride. And remember to breathe. This level 7, this tension in my neck related to my bike ride. And you're going to focus on that sensation in your body with that issue. This level 7 related to the tension in my neck and my bike ride. I'm already getting caught up in the process because I'm focusing. If you start to stumble on your words, take that as a sign that it's working. This level 7 is tension in my neck related to my bike ride. This level 7 is tension in my neck related to my bike ride. And if you can, keep your eyes open. This level 7 related to the tension in my neck and my bike ride. This level 7 is tension in my neck related to my bike ride. And then you're going to take a deep cleansing breath at the end. And then you're going to dial into your body. You're going to check in with the sensation. And you're going to evaluate if anything's changed in the level of the sensation, what the sensation actually feels like, and if it's gone up or down. So for me, with my tension in my neck, I feel like it went from a 7 to like a 4 right now, which is really good because I had a lot of tension in my neck and it wasn't very comfortable. Did anybody else out there feel any shifts with their topic? Now, if you want to share, your SEDS level went from this to this, or the change in the sensation happened, maybe it completely went away, maybe it just went down 1 point. The important part is that you're going in the right direction. So if you focused on your situation and it went down 1 point or a half a point, it's still going in the right direction. If you didn't go down very much, maybe you're missing the topic a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit more of a pointed topic, slightly different than that. So if you pick a little bit more of a topic that's closely related to more of an emotional awareness of something, then you might hit a little deeper. Somebody said, I think my situation's going to need some work. That's not surprising. Some of the stuff that you're going to want to use EFT for, like I said at the beginning, there is a certain level that you can do on your own in palliative level form, which is what I'm teaching today for you to do on your own. If you feel like there's a lot more deep stuff connected to what's going on, then it's definitely worth reaching out to a professional who is trained in EFT tapping or another trauma-informed care method to help you deal with that situation. What this palliative version care level does is it helps you to just take the edge off of what's going on. This is not going to solve the problem. It is not going to make it go away. It's just going to take the edge off for you so you can be a little bit more comfortable with the situation. It may not make it go away forever. It might come back, but at least then you'll have that tool you can apply again to mitigate the stress a little bit better. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on any of that? If you were wanting to make something go away for good, and this is what EFT is really powerful for, in a clinical setting, EFT is specifically used to target events and memories. And what that does clinically is it takes a memory that's traumatic or really emotionally charged, and you take steps on approaching the issue and starting to tap down the intensity of that issue before moving forward with the memory. So each part that initiates some intensity, you stop and you tap down on the intensity until you're ready to go forward again, and then you continue refocusing on the memory. And the next time an emotional response comes up, you stop again and you tap down that intensity until you get through the whole memory of something, which is usually between 30 seconds to 3 minutes long, is how long the memories generally are. Then once that's done and all the pieces are collapsed, you go back to the beginning of the memory, and then you focus on making sure that there's nothing else that comes up again when you go through it and kind of amplify the idea of it. And if nothing comes up, they've actually found that it collapses and causes the memory's charge to become extinct in the body. So it should not come back after you've tapped down the emotional charge to extinction in a clinical process. So I think that's what some people out there are talking about. If you are seeking that, I highly recommend reaching out to somebody locally to you that could help you with that. Repeat the process with the memory a little slower. So yeah, so the memory with recounting it in a therapeutic experience, it's called tell the story technique, is what I would do in a therapeutic setting. Where you take the memory and you have somebody remember the memory, and you start at the beginning of the memory, and as soon as an emotional response comes up, you pause talking about the memory and you directly address the emotional response, and you tap that down until the person is in a place in which they're feeling comfortable continuing on explaining the memory. And then the next time another emotional charge comes up, you again pause in the story and you tap that down until the emotional charge is low enough where you're ready to go on. You do this until the whole memory is covered, and then you go back and you amplify it. And if nothing is there, then they've proven that this actually collapses the intensity of the memory. The memory will not go away. The intensity and emotional charge connected to the memory, i.e. the physiological response of triggering in your body, will collapse and go away. So it really does help a lot of people who have experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, very traumatic experiences and losses. So it's one of the most fascinating parts about EFT, in my opinion. Reminder phrase. So a lot of people also ask about the setup statement, do you repeat that same, I accept myself throughout that. It's really only required in the beginning part of that tapping process. If you feel like that's helpful for you to keep saying, I love and accept myself or whatever through the process, go right ahead and do that. I know some people have a hard time also being in a negative space with things and they want to add a positive. I would recommend doing a first round at the very least with not adding a positive phrase through the whole thing, just doing it at the beginning. And then if you want to add again another round and you want to do the positive after, then that might be helpful for you as well. Additionally, if you get, say, like in my example, the tension of my neck's at a 4, and I really would not like it to be a 4 anymore, I'd still like it to be lower than that. I would actually go through that process again, and I would say, even though I have this remaining 4 related to overexerting myself on my bike ride today, I'm gonna choose to love and accept myself anyway, even though I have this remaining 4 related to overexerting myself on my bike ride today. I'm gonna choose to love and accept myself anyway, and go to the top of the head, and you're gonna say this remaining 4 and keep tapping. This remaining 4 with the sensation, and then go through the whole list. And at the end, you're gonna again do the deep breath and evaluate whether or not that sensation has decreased, changed in sensation, or gone away completely. I hope that makes sense to everybody. If you were like, I'm fine with that at a 4 and it's not really bothering you, then you don't have to go back and do another repeat of that. Somebody asked, in therapy, would I actually verbalize out loud, step by step, the memory? So there is actually different parts of, so in clinical purposes for EFT, there are different pieces of doing EFT. So there's one called the tearless trauma technique, which you don't talk about the memory at all. You just imagine it. And if there's emotional intensity, even imagining it, then you tap on that before you even go into saying anything. And there's another part that is called the movie technique, in which the person remembers it in their own mind. And as soon as you start to have a sensation, or you start to have an emotion come up, then you stop in the remembering of the movie, and you have the person tap down with you in that movie what happened. You don't have to share what was in that movie, but you tap down that sensation with a practitioner. Then to go further, so I think the idea is to go from the tearless trauma to the movie technique, and then eventually to the tell the story technique, because that's what's really going to collapse the issues, if that's something that's desired. You can still collapse a lot of it, but it may not make it go 100% away until you do the tell the story technique. And I know that's challenging for many people, because it's hard to speak out something that's been very traumatic for people. That's all the more reason why it's so important to have a good rapport with whoever you're working with as well, so that you have a positive therapeutic alliance with that person, and you're comfortable being in their presence and having them not judge you, and having them, you trust them to be able to lead you through whatever is going on. You're very welcome. So any other questions out there that people have about EFT? I think I've pretty much run through my whole tapping handout here. I'd love to also give the floor to somebody who'd like me to model tapping through a specific challenge that they're having right now, so that I can help to provide you some relief on the other side. And then if somebody would like to volunteer with an issue, then everybody can also tap along. That's called borrowing benefits. So in a group of people who are all tapping at the same time, even if it's not your issue, you can still borrow the benefits of the tapping experience by following along with somebody who's tapping on their own story. So I'd love to have somebody share something that they'd like. You know, all you'd have to do is give me like a basic title. Like I said, basic title. I'm not even gonna say who this is from. So you can even say privately to me in the chat, and nobody will know that it was you that responded. A title, your SUDS level, and then also the sensation, location, and what the sensation is in your body. So if you are interested in doing that, please send me a private message on the group chat, and I'd be happy to help you. I'll give a moment for people to respond if they're interested. And if nobody is interested in volunteering, oh, there's somebody who said something. General anxiety level 6 in your stomach. Okay, so we'll do that. Thank you for offering up your experience. So I'm sure everybody here can relate to some general anxiety right now. So I'm going to have everybody here who's on the call focus on your own general anxiety of what's going on. And I'm going to lead you through the process. So you identify what your level is of your general anxiety. where it is in your body. And if there is a sensation, the lovely person who shared their response, could you give me a sensation that you have in your stomach? Might be a twisting, tightening, heaviness, tight, not hungry for dinner. So a tightness and maybe even a lack of appetite, it sounds like. So we're going to start on the side of the hand, and you're going to start tapping on the side of the hand and say, even though I have a lot of anxiety right now, I'm choosing to deeply and completely accept myself anyway. Even though I have a lot of anxiety right now, I'm going to choose to deeply and completely accept myself anyway. Then you're going to go to the top of your head and you're going to say your SEDS level. For this person, this says, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat. And then the eyebrow point, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. And think about that anxiety and think about that sensation and breathe. And then the next point, side of the eye, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach, not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. And breathe. Under the eye, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. And then under the nose, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. And breathe. And under the mouth, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. And breathe. And then the collarbone points. Again, 1 inch down, 1 inch to both sides. This level 6, this tightness in my stomach, not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. Breathe. And then last point, under the arm, so on either side or both sides, this level 6, this tightness in my stomach and not wanting to eat related to my anxiety. Deep breath. I got a yawn on that one. And then at the end, you're going to do a nice deep cleansing breath. And then you're just going to sit with your body for a moment. Pay attention to how it's feeling now. If there's any change in your level, there's a change in your sensation. Has it moved to a different place? And if you would like to let me know how that went for you, that would be awesome. Down to a 4. Great. So again, you're going in the right direction. If you want to continue to work on that, it's the general anxiety is a bit of a broad topic, which it can still be helped to take the edge down, but there might be many things that are holding up that theme of anxiety. So what they say in the EFT instruction is your theme is likely a tabletop, like a tabletop. You know, it's holding up a lot of stuff, a lot of challenge and charge of things going on. And there are events and moments that are like table legs that hold up that tabletop. So in a general anxiety situation, there's probably many things that are holding up that tabletop of your anxiety. And so in order to reduce more of that sensation over time and get that to go away more consistently, you may need to address those specific events and challenges that are holding up that tabletop of general anxiety. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So for example, somebody out there might my partner lost their job, or I lost my job right now, and that's something that's giving me anxiety. Oh, and I also am a stay-at-home parent right now, and I'm not used to being at home with my kids all the time, and that's really stressing me out. Oh, and also, I have my in-law who has to stay with me because they can't be over here anymore. And so I have them in my house, and that's stressing me out. Oh, and the animal just got sick. And so now we have to figure out how to pay for that. And there's so many different things that can stress people out. So you're going to want to probably break that down of the general anxiety to those specific things that are really challenging your anxiety, and address those to get a more long-term consistent reduction in the taking the edge off. Again, you might not get to the whole root of what's really causing you to have that distress, but if you could take the edge down right now, that's going to be really helpful for you just in the grand scheme of things. Did anybody else feel any borrowed benefits from that experience, focusing on your own? I'd love to hear from other people out there if they felt like that was effective for them as well, even though they were not the focus of that. I think my neck might have even gone down a little bit more, even though I wasn't focusing on anxiety. Anybody else feel like sharing out there? Yes, felt benefit each time I do one tapping session. That's awesome. Yeah, so the other thing about tapping, and they love to say this, especially the tapping solution thing, they said, the one caveat about tapping is if you don't use it, it doesn't work. So the more that you use it, the better off you are. And when it comes to the vagus nerve, actually doing this technique when you're not stressed or when you're not focused on a certain thing and you're just in a state to be able to focus on the tapping experience itself, and doing that regularly, say you do this process once a day, every day for the next week, when it comes down to a moment that you're feeling extra stressed, you're probably going to be able to remember that you've got this tool in your back pocket that can help you to feel a little bit better. If you didn't practice it though, you're not going to remember it's there. So the more you practice it, the more that it actually rewires your brain's processes. So what they say is the nerves that fire together wire together. So when you are tapping on these points, you're actually interrupting the signals that are coming from your brain and communicating to your body via the vagus nerve a lot of the time. And you're interrupting those negative processes with this positive stimulus. Tapping is a positive stimulus, interrupting a negative thought process. So when you're thinking about a negative thing and you're tapping with a positive process, it's jolting the energy that is flowing through your body and allows it to open up to a reprogramming and a shifting. And that's when you're actually reprogramming something, that's when you're going to get the energetic release that comes through in any of those ways I discussed, like crying, laughing, deep breathing, yawning, flushing feeling, tingling. Then I got a couple of other people who shared. Went from a 9 to a 7 on their stress. Awesome. How does mentioning only that the level X is due to the anxiety help the brain rather than specifying the problem table legs? So if you're just trying to bring some immediate relief right now, just focusing on the intensity of the issue will help to bring down the intensity of the general thing that you're doing. If you're wanting to make it go further and last longer, then you will need to get more specific about the things that are going on. And tapping down on the specific things will help to reduce the edge and have it stay longer. And in therapy, when we are tapping on an event, a memory that's traumatic, we want to go as far back in history as possible, because the younger you are, the deeper the programming is. And so all the other things that triggered, what happens in the brain is when you've had a trigger, earlier in years, anything that happens after that event that then makes it seem like it's the same experience. So for example, when you, maybe somebody was scared by somebody who was going to mug their parent or something, and you saw the mugger, and it was fine, nobody was killed, nobody was hurt, but it was a scary event as a child. Anybody you see that looks like that mugger from there on is going to make your brain freak out, and you're going to lose your ability to think clearly, and you're going to go into that fight or flight response, even if there isn't actually any real danger in that moment. It's going to trigger your brain into thinking that it's happening again and bring you right back into that state. So the more events that happen in your life, they end up getting filed in your brain next to that original event. So in therapy, we go as far back as we can to the original event if possible, because when you tap on the original event, then it will collapse all the other ones that come after that. So that's what they found in the research, is that when you get to that original initiating event, all the other ones that were linked to the response of that event then can also become extinct by addressing that one event. So a lot of people, you're welcome, sorry you have to leave. All the people who are worried, like, oh, I've got this huge history of trauma, I'm never gonna get done with like experiencing and reprogramming all this stuff. What's the point? It's actually a positive thing that we know now, that just because you have chronic or repeated trauma doesn't mean that you're not gonna get to feeling better. It just means that you might have to go back to those original memories to then feel a bigger shift in your life and a bigger shift in your energy field, so that you can regain more of that sense of control within your body. And one of the things that has been mentioned on the forums that I'm part of also is that what's happening in our culture, in our country and world right now is actually triggering a lot of people's other things from their history, because maybe it reminds them of something earlier in their life. So an example that somebody gave recently was, if you grew up with like food insecurity, and now people are talking about, oh, there's not going to be enough food in the grocery stores, or you go to the grocery store and there's not enough food or the things that you need, it will likely trigger back to that original memory of a child that didn't have food in their home, and it triggers that amygdala response of fight or flight. So if people are feeling like, I don't know why I'm suddenly more overwhelmed than everybody else seems to be, but this is really, really difficult for me, it might be because it's triggering something from your early life that needs to potentially be addressed in order for you to get rid of that response for good. I don't know if that answers your question about the level versus the table legs and so on. I still have 7 more minutes on here, so I'm also happy to answer any other questions that people have, or do another round of tapping if somebody feels like they'd like to get some more support, or if you'd like to share if you had a successful borrowing benefits. Okay, go ahead and tap in what your question is into the chat, or what your situation is that you'd like to be addressed. Somebody who raised their hand. I'll just wait for them to type. You can also unmute yourself if you would like to speak it out. Just a reminder that it will be recorded on the video if you choose to speak it out. And if you do not want to speak it out, feel free to type it in the chat right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to ask, so again, this is probably more in the general category.
Mm-hmm.
If I am having trouble sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
is there some tapping message, can you verbalize what I would say? I mean, can it help me with my sleep? How would I frame that in words for tapping?
Yeah, absolutely. So for sleeping, you want to probably address your concern over not being able to sleep well. So you're gonna find what the intensity level is about sleep and not being able to sleep. Is there a sensation in your body? Where is that located? And then you're gonna do the side of the hand tapping, even though, say, like, I'm really frustrated that I can't sleep lately, or I'm really angry that I can't sleep lately, or I'm really starting to get depressed because I can't sleep lately. I am choosing to love and accept myself anyway. And you're gonna do that repeated statement again. And then you're gonna go on the intensity level of that distress about not being able to sleep. And then you're gonna tap that through, get it to a level that's comfortable for you, and then see if it relaxes your body enough to be able to sleep through the night. The other thing that I recommend doing that I mentioned earlier is that earthing actually has been helpful for people to sleep as well. And I'll give you a perfect example that I came across recently. I had a parent reach out to me about a child that was having a lot of stress, thinking, worrying before going to sleep, and it was affecting her sleep. So I recommended that she take the child out, it was a little girl, take the daughter outside and do some earthing for 15 minutes. And I said, even if she doesn't understand why she's feeling better, she'll probably start to feel better. And it should help to relieve some of that, and she might even sleep better. So the parent emailed me back a couple of hours after I recommended that. They said they just took their daughter outside. We put our hand on the tree and a bare feet on the ground at the same time. And after a couple minutes, she's like, why do I feel better already? This is so weird. And I checked in the next day, said, how did she sleep? And she said, a lot better. So I would add not only that process of the tapping and focusing on the sensation and distress of not being able to sleep, but I would also do the earthing, because I think you get a well-rounded approach with that. Yes, I will be sharing the recording for this. That was a question that was asked. I will be posting this on my Facebook page. It will be on my website, awakenhcs.com, under my COVID-19 tab as of now. When this is all done and over and we're all released finally, I will be keeping that on my website also. And the last question I wanted to try to answer for somebody, unless the other person who'd raised their hand wanted to speak, I'll try to still answer the other question. Go ahead.
What if it's a chronic situation like gastro problems, but not related, at least consciously, to any specific trauma?
So you can still focus on the challenge that you're having physically to try to address that sensation. Maybe you have some stomach pain, or even the distress about having the stomach challenges. You can focus on that and see if it starts to relieve a little bit. Obviously, I would recommend making sure that you're following up with a physical doctor to, work on the physical aspect of things. But it has been shown that we do have emotional challenges that often connect to our organs. So it may be worth investigating whether or not there's an emotional root that also is in line with what's happening in your body.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And then the last question on here, somebody's theme, daughter, an abusive relationship, tightness in your stomach, and a 9. So the way I would set up that setup phrase for you would be, even though I'm really worried about my daughter who's in an abusive relationship right now, I'm gonna choose to love and accept myself anyway. Even though I'm really worried about my daughter who's in an abusive relationship right now, and maybe even add, and there's nothing I can do about it, I'm gonna choose to love and accept myself anyway. And then go through the points, this level 9, I will say something about the 9 in a second. This level 9, this tightness in my stomach, thinking about my daughter's safety. This level 9, this level 9 of tightness in my stomach, thinking about my daughter's safety. Obviously you can't change your experience of your daughter right now, otherwise things probably would be different. But you can change how you're feeling about it, which might feel like you can get more control over how you're feeling about the situation. And whenever there's something like that going on, all I can recommend is try to make sure that you do not push your child away by trying to get more involved, because that usually plays into the abuser's hands more. So if you have resources, or if you want to find resources, I also recommend, if you're local, I'm not sure if you're local, but reach out to your local domestic violence organization for tips on being concerned about a family member. They might be able to give you some more feedback on resources or how to support your daughter in case she does want to make a change. As far as the level 9 goes, I know that's a very intense situation. When it comes to the EFT at home, you may not be able to fully bring that down because it brings you into a real crisis state, which is not surprising because you're a parent, right? You're always going to be very worried about your children, and you're always going to want to protect them. And again, just bringing down how you feel about that is probably the only thing you can really control, and always letting your child know that you are there for them no matter what happens, and that you hope that they obtain safety as soon as possible, and recognize that they are worth more than what's going on, and you have their back if they need you. And that's really the most that we can do for people who are in abusive situations. Unfortunately, it's their choice. Unless there is children involved, then there can be a filing placed on that situation. But if there is there are no children involved, it is a personal choice to go through that. And sometimes people learn a lot from that situation. I myself have been in an abusive situation before, and I look back on that experience really grateful that I went through that small period of time of my life, that I learned so much from that, because it taught me how to be strong as a person once I actually got out of it. And I truly hope that your daughter does have the opportunity to get out of it. And somebody else said a helpful book maybe for this person is Women Who Love Too Much. That's a good recommendation. Thank you for the person who shared that. And I also might recommend seeing if your child might be an empath. So an empathic person tends to be very sensitive to the emotion and energy of other people, and they're very easily overtaken by people who are really focused on taking power over others. So yes, an empath for sure. So what I might also recommend that your child learn about energy protection and taking care of their energy field, maybe even giving some gift of crystals to your child might be a supportive energy practice that they can keep with them, and you're not technically interfering, you're just giving them some positive energy they can keep in their energy field. Empaths tend to be very responsive to crystal energy, and also sound healing and other things like that. Empaths really need that energetic support in order for them to gain better control over their experience. So I hope that is helpful for everybody out there. And I hope that this EFT tapping instruction was a positive experience for you and was helpful for your learning and your own process of what you're going through. And if you would like to get in contact with me personally, you're welcome to reach out to me through my website at www.awakenhcs.com. And you can also follow me on my Facebook, which is facebook.com/awakenhcs. I do have an Instagram page, but I am not as active on that as I am on Facebook. And you're welcome to just reach out if you have any other questions. And I look forward to sharing this online so you can share it with others as well. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you so much for joining me. And I wish you well in your processes. So take care and have a great evening. Bye, everybody.